Hi, everybody, and welcome to the new episode of the NSL's podcast. I hope you're all keeping well here listening. Delighted with my co-host John's back. How are you, John?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Thanks. Yourself?
I'm fine, man. I'm fine. I'm also delighted to be joined by a show regular, William. How are you, William?
I'm very well, mate. Glad to be back on.
Yeah, it's good to have you back on. I mean, you guys know we have so much to talk about in regards to the press conferences, both the fan press conference and the media one. So we'll get stuck right in, and we'll start with the media press conference. This was the first time we had the opportunity to see Postecoglou, Dominic Mackay, and Ian Bankier. All three of them were sitting together in the room with the media, posing questions to them. Come to yourself, William. What's in that? Well, what's in that press conference? Obviously, we've seen snippets of Postecoglou with it via Zoom or the Celtic YouTube channels, giving his thoughts and getting the job. But this is the first time we actually got to see him speak in terms of the live conference, and Dominic Mackay and Ian Bankier as well. Now, I kind of started with Ian Bankier just giving a line, basically saying it took longer than many people expected. Blah, 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 kind of paraphrasing, but he didn't really seem interested in the whole thing. He just sat there with face like thunder majority of the time. He didn't even smile once. But then Dominic Mackay and Ange Postecoglou, I think, give a good account of themselves. Ange Postecoglou, very assertive in the way he wants to play. He said that one of his quotes were that it's all words. Him basically saying all these things. He wants to be on the training pitch, kind of putting into the players what's going to be happening for the season coming. But how did you feel watching it, and what was your overwhelming feeling in terms of what did you take from the press conference?
Yeah, I was. By the end of it, I was like a kite. I was absolutely buzzing. I think the one thing I took away was it looks like Ange and Dom's relationship. They've got a really, really good working relationship, and they both seem very excited to work alongside each other. But every time Big Ange speaks, I'm just sit there, just listening with my dreamy eyes on him. I think he's just fantastic. Like I say, I've said it in the past. Every time he talks, I believe him. And I feel like he's got me cuddled in and just saying it's going to be all right. I'm in charge now. I'll take care of it. I'll take care of your club. I'll take care of your baby. So everything he said, I was just hanging off every word. And I think the biggest thing for me, and I said it to you guys in our group chat, is it's such a difficult thing to be like very, very confident, but not seem arrogant at the same time. And be very humble, and I think he's got that in abundance. He just overall sense of pride he has at being in charge of our club, which is something we love to see. I think if you look back now, we were all screaming for Eddie Howe, but he didn't deserve the job after everything that passed after that. He's not wanting the job to the end of the season. All this nonsense. This guy is here. He wants to be here. He's a proud man. He talked about all he kept talking about was he wants to play entertaining football. A couple of quotes he made that's really stuck with me was I'm here because this is where I want to be, and he never backed down. I mean, there was a few interesting questions about he knows it wasn't first choice, and he says, "Well, you're assuming I'm second choice. I could have been fifth choice." He says, "I don't care." The important thing is he's been given the opportunity, and these guys have faith in me, and that's all I need. I mean, like I say, it's just like a calming aura. All these questions thrown at him, and he's never stuttered or backpedaled once. He comes back at you. Another one was, I think this is my favourite quote at all. They were discussing, I think they discussed with Dom about the plan going forward and stuff like that. And Dom said we want Ange to have the capacity to play the football that he wants to play. And then they came to Ange and he just said, "I just want us to play football that everybody talks about." And that was it, nothing else. And I just got shivers up my spine. I thought, this is the man. I want to take us forward. Everything he says just exudes confidence, and the fact that he's got an idea and a style he wants to implement, and it seems like he's given the freedom to do that. When it comes to the talk about players that maybe be leaving, and everything was always followed up with every decision I'll make will be with the best interests of the club. So if players want to move on, they can move on. If players want to stay, then they'll need to fight to stay. Nothing, no player power, no, which I felt like Lennon at the end of his tenure, that was the case. It was more player power than him being in charge. They weren't playing for him. it sounds to me like that's not going to happen under Ange. Another thing that I think Stephen might be happy with, I don't know if you noticed, where they were talking about it's not just playing staff, it was coaching staff also, and they said about John Kennedy and Gavin Strachan, he says, well, I've came in, but that's not a definite as yet. I want to see how they work and see how I work and see if it fits, and I'll make that decision in the coming weeks. So that seems like it's not a certainty that they guys are going to be staying. Again, he's talking about his connection to the club and his roots when he was younger and how he came about knowing about the club, and he knows the history, and he talks about the Lisbon Lions and how he had friends that played in his team that were Scottish. I think he mentioned one of them still a season ticket holder and waxes lyrical about the club. So he's got that. He always talks about the fans and the passion, and we want like our football clubs are a way of life. So all these things, everything I seen was positive. With regards to Dom, he's a more friendlier face. But,
that's true.
Yeah, but for me, he's just a proper politician. Every question that gets thrown at him, he answers it without answering it. But again, he's out there and he's in these press conferences and he's putting his point across and putting his view and his vision. This modernisation, which I still don't have a Scooby-Doo what modernising the club is. I'm still yet to hear like a description of or some sort of examples of what he's talking about. But I mean, it's all positive stuff. And again, I think the relationship between the two looks really good. Looks like it's a good working relationship. I feel like it should make a good sitcom actually. Ange and Dom.
I mean, there was a photo doing the rounds on Twitter. It was like, get yourself someone who looks at Postecoglou the way Dominic Mackay does, and he's just like these loving eyes in the distance that staring at him. And I totally agree where you're coming from in terms of Dominic Mackay before going to Postecoglou again. He's the typical the politician type guy, and he dances around the questions. But see, at the same time, you're listening, going, this guy knows what he's talking about. Maybe not even getting the answers either. Dominic Mackay, he did say he is a Celtic fan. He's been in the stands. He's been a season ticket holder. And I do believe him when he says he wants to drive the club forward. Modernisation. And he said that he wants Postecoglou to be basically imperative that the decisions are going to be made in regards to whether it's director of football, technical director, chief scouts. But again, it does leave me worried that part's still up for grabs, but we'll go on to that later in the show. But John, coming to yourself, now there was one quote that Postecoglou did say, and William touched on a few there that were brilliant. He said, anyone who knows me and my history will know I don't take well to finish in second either. I'm driven to be successful. Now, this was off the back of a question from one of the media outlets saying basically about his style and how long does it take to be implemented. And he kind of came back at them, look, I don't want to finish second. I'm here to win. And he's quite confident that Celtic can take to the style straight away in regards to the quality of player that he already possesses. But what was your overwhelming take from the conference, the media one first anyway, John?
I thought it was great, and I mean William pretty much hit the nail on the head, and I agree with just everything he said. He just exudes confidence, but without being arrogant about it. And I could listen to him talk about football all day. He's just a very calming voice, but he's assertive in the sense as well. Like he knows exactly what he wants. He knows the direction. He's clearly what he head in with the club, and I just thought it was a fantastic way to introduce himself, first of all, with the sort of Scottish media as well, because by and large they're going to be taking chunks out of him, no doubt, over the course of the season. So it remains to be seen how he handles that. But as it stands at the moment, I think everything he said, like William said, hanging off every word and just believe everything he's saying. And it's just filled me with confidence as well that he's going to get us back on track. And I think, like William mentioned, that we were all dead set on Eddie Howe coming in, and I think that was the main guy we all wanted. But see, now I don't even give that a second thought. I'm happy with Ange coming in, and I'm grateful that we've got. I mean, a lot of people are saying that they don't know who he is and they've never heard of him and all that, but he's still very highly rated when you hear from people that do know him. And obviously down in that continent, he's a legend. And nobody's got anything bad to say about him. And like I said, you just need to hear the man speak. And you can buy into everything he's saying, and I think he's going to follow through with that promise, and I think he's going to get us back on track, and I can't wait to see it happening. As for like that quote as well, I just need to touch on that quote when they asked him. Obviously, the media right away try to get under his skin right off the bat by saying, "Does it bother you that you were second choice?" His rebuttal to that question was phenomenal, and he done it with a smile on his face. He said, "You're assuming I was second. I could have been fifth, but I don't care. I'm here. They've put faith in me." And he seems like he's genuinely happy to be there. He knows the stature of the club. He knows how big the club is. He knows how much it means to the fans. He seems very grateful to be in the position he's in at the minute. But and like William says, he's like, "I'm going to take care of it." And like you just genuinely believe every word he's saying. I just thought it was a fantastic introduction to him, and I thought he handled himself perfectly. As for Dom, like you said, he comes across as that political way where he kind of avoids questions, especially like you said about the modernisation of things. But he did he touched on a couple of things, and I might be getting myself confused if it was in the main media presser or if it was in the fan one. But he mentioned obviously looking at other clubs of a similar size as Celtic and seeing how their inner workings are and how they deal with things like the youths at the side of things. He seems very focused as well as Ange on giving the youth a chance and utilising what we've got here. And obviously he mentioned like analytics and using data and all that. Like that's a much more modern thing that a lot of top clubs seem to be doing. And he mentioned as well that he's got he spent a lot of time in America with American sports, and they use a lot of this when they're looking at players and stuff like that. Sort of analytics and the data that comes with that. And me personally, I can understand roughly what he's talking about because I'm a big basketball fan, and I watch basketball regularly, and their basketball is very analytic heavy, and it can give you a great insight, especially when it comes to like things like drafting and you're looking at players, what they're capable of and stuff like that. So it can be a very useful tool if it's used right. How they can translate that to us over here in a footballing sense remains to be seen. But the fact that he's talking about it and they're looking at these kind of things is kind of exciting as well, because that is bringing the club up to scratch in terms of modernisation and stuff like that. And like he says, looking at the likes of Ajax and their youth system, other clubs similar, to see how they're sort of operating in that regard is definitely something as well. You can take things for these places, and the fact that he seems to have a relationship in that sense with these people, and he's speaking to these clubs and he's talking to these guys to see how to take things forward. And so obviously he seems to have his mindset about modernisation, to me at least, comes across that he's looking at that those kind of things that I've just mentioned and how to bring them in and bringing things up to date in that respect. But yeah, I thought it was a great conference. They both conducted themselves really well. You mentioned there like the whole director of football thing. It sounds a lot like they never gave a definitive answer, but it does sound a lot like Dom saying, as Ange's, we'll give these guys, we'll see, get other pieces in place first, and then we'll see where we go for there. They're no jumping head first into anything and just doing it for the sake of it. They obviously want to see where we are in a few weeks, and then obviously see it ultimately. It seems like Ange has got a lot to say as well, and he's going to have a large part in that, and I quite like that, and I'm glad that we're not just jumping head first into the director of football hiring thing without it being like properly looked at and making sure that it's somebody that's going to fit in with the sort of club ethos that Ange wants to take it forward, and sort of fits in with that style and stuff like that. So if it takes time to get this guy in place, fair enough. If it takes time to get the right backroom team in place, then fair enough. I want this to be done right, and I'm hoping that Dom and Ange are working together, and it's not being rushed for the sake of being rushed. And if it means ultimately that we're going to get the right pieces in place and the best pieces in place to take us forward for years to come, then by all means.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right there. Sorry, William, I'm coming back to yourself the wee second, but
I know what it is.
I know in regards to what you said there about similar sized clubs, John, I think that was in the fan presser, but again, that's a great shout. I think you need to be looking at evolving And he touched upon the likes of Brentford. They do that Moneyball thing down there, and it seems to be working well for them. This got promoted down into the English Premier League. The likes of Sevilla, Salzburg, Leipzig. We need to be looking at them clubs to see what their model is, because again, we've got an academy and it needs to be utilised. And if we can bring players through, and unfortunately, you will be looking to sell them on a bigger profit in terms of gaining money back in the club. That has to be done. And I think as well, as you said there, both of you, it's great that he alluded to the fact that he wasn't first choice, and he kind of shut your man down there by saying he could have been fifth choice. And as you said, John, it was just class the way he done that, and he had that wee smirk on his face, like he knew what he was doing. There was another quote as well, just want to say to yourself, William, and I'll get your thoughts from there. He also said, in regards to that question as well, I gather that there was a little bit of a mixed response when I was announced as a Celtic manager, but what I do know is 100% of Celtic supporters will want me to be successful, which is true. We all do. Nothing is more important than this football club. If I'm successful, then this football club is successful in terms of his coaching style. But do you not think that's the type of man that we need at the moment? And as John said, if he gets these influences, he can bring in who he wants, like a blank canvas. That's the right way to go, isn't it?
Definitely. And he said himself that this is what he loves to do. He loves to rebuild. He loves to build teams and put his philosophy and his style on. Just everything that was thrown at him, he took in his stride with these. I'd hate to be his wife. Imagine he never won an argument. Never won an argument with him. Like, no way. A couple more things. Like, I mean, he actually said at one point, I don't know if anyone noticed, he said once Celtic approached him, he had a few Zoom interviews and stuff. He actually said himself, I did a bit of research to see if it was a good fit for me also. So it's not like I feel like it's a bit like this guy's he's been perceived as he's not managed at the greatest level, and it's below, and Celtic's above his pay grade, so to speak. But to hear him say that, like, no, I needed to make sure this was a good fit for both, not just, he didn't just go, this is a massive opportunity, I'm going to grab it. I think that speaks volumes of him. Again, he was talking about how he's came over and he's been in quarantine, but he's been working through this quarantine, and he said that everybody at Celtic's been accessible throughout at all hours. He says I think he says something along the lines, if I was jet lagged and up at 3 a.m. and something, I could access somebody and speak to them. And he has been working, which is massive. I think we all talked about, we're hoping he's working behind the scenes throughout this, and he obviously touched on signings, and they have been looking, and he said there's a couple of positions that are badly needed strengthened, because we're only 4 weeks away from a Champions League qualifier. These are all the things that we were hoping was going on behind the scenes. So that put me at ease a bit also. And I was just wanting to touch on, like John was talking about, how when he's come in now, if it takes time for him to get his backroom staff, if it takes time to get directors of football and all the rest of it, like he's happy, he wants it done right, which is absolutely banging the money. We've been screaming for months and months and months, we want this, we want this, we want that, we want a manager, we want this. But it's not necessarily all the bits and pieces that comes with it. That's the biggest thing with the Eddie Howe situation, whereas he should have been doing exactly what Ange has done if he wanted the job that much. Coming in the door, I'll worry about all that other stuff afterwards. I'm going to get to work, and we'll figure that all out, and we'll sort that out afterwards. This is all we were wanting as fans. It's just somebody in the door, progression, and then let's get to work.
Absolutely.
So everything, again, can't speak highly enough that press conference. Everything he said, it's made me a very happy man. And I mean, we've not been very happy the last few months, but I'm very, very excited. The Euros has been great, but I cannot wait for the season to start. I cannot wait to see the people he's going to bring in, and I'm super, super excited to see what he's going to bring.
Would it be fair to say, William, you're a Postecoglou fanboy now? I
am. I'm actually wanting to go back and delete some of the podcasts off where I said I don't even know the guy, I don't want him in, and all the rest of it. I'm ashamed.
Like, I mean, we all said them things when it was first announced. I mean, us guys were blue in the face with just like, what's going on here? But it's just the fact we didn't have no clarity over the situation. And now you hear him speaking, you're like, this guy, he seems like he knows what he's going to be doing on the training pits. He seems to have a clear vision for the team going forward. And us as Celtics fans, we're going to buy into that no matter what. We need to get behind the team. And just before we move on, there was one thing in that press conference. I don't know the exact quote, but hopefully one of you do, where he shot down Chris McLaughlin of the BBC. Something about Chris McLaughlin trying to point to Celtic as a step up or a jump. I think that was the word he used. And Postecoglou come back. Do you know what he said, William? Exactly.
Yeah, he said something along the lines of, "I take it your point is that you think that I've managed at a lesser or lower level." He's like, he was like, "That's a matter of opinion. I've managed at World Cups at international level. I've managed against and coached against some of the biggest teams in the world. So I don't see it as that. I just see it as, and I believe in my abilities," or something along the lines. But I shot him right down. So
yeah, then come to yourself, John. Do you think that's the type of guy we need to come at the Scottish press? Because we've seen them before. They're like snipers when it comes to Celtic.
No, like I said when I was just speaking there a minute ago, I was like, it was his first experience of the Scottish media, and we know what the Scottish media are like. They're going to try and get under his skin. They're going to say stuff to try and rile him up and get a reaction just so that they've got something to print. But the way he conducted himself and the way that he answered the questions and he took it in his stride gives me confidence as well, because I think before he came in, we knew we kind of got this impression that he was no nonsense and he didn't really care for the media and anything they've got to say. And I think that still stands, and he kind of showed it. He's like, he was quick to come back at them and answer them. He was confident in the things he was saying. They tried to get under his skin with wee questions like that one there about the step up. Handled it perfectly. Mentioned you weren't even first. You weren't the first choice. You were second. He's like, well, maybe he wasn't second. I was fifth. Like, who cares? I'm here. Like he done it with a smile, and he just. Sorry, William, you want to say, mate?
I was just going to touch on that there. You talked about how he is no nonsense, but I think the biggest thing for me is like Neil Lennon was no nonsense, but let's face it, sometimes his comments were a bit hit and miss. Let's say, just to be.
No, I get that.
Whereas Postecoglou, he does come back and he has no nonsense and he will fire it right back in your face, but he does it with respect. You don't feel like he's arrogant or disrespectful or aggressive in any way, but he gets his point across, and I think it's a trait that not many people have.
No, definitely. I would agree with that, and like I said, the way he handled himself in front of the Scottish media just kind of makes you think that as the season goes on, and they are going to, as we know, they're going to try and get under his skin, as I says, they're going to poke at him and try and get a reaction. But I just think he comes across as the type of guy that's going to handle it no bother, be water off a duck's back, so to speak. And I'm pretty, like he says, he's got the best interests of the club and the fans and everything else at heart, and he's going to do what he can to ensure that remains the case, and he's not going to embroil himself in getting caught up in all the nonsense. So I'm like William says, I'm excited, and for the first time in a long time, I'm excited, and I'm just like you say, just can't wait for this new season to start pressing on, and then just.
We're all counting the days, aren't we? To the first game, whether it be the Champions League or the first SPFL game, and we're all looking forward to it with kind of optimism now after hearing him speak. And before we move on to the much talked about the fan press conference, I wanted to just touch upon the chairman, Ian Bankier, and I'll come to yourself, William, here first. And I've kind of just forgot what he said because it was just pointless. It just seemed so pointless, and he sat in that press conference the whole time like he didn't want to be there. And let's face facts. It was a face like thunder. He just looked so angry and pissed off for some reason. I don't know what your takeaway from it was, but he said something along the lines of, fair enough, it took longer than people expected, blah, 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 that type of thing. But what was your opinion of the guy when he appeared in that conference?
I thought somebody died when he first came on because he was so morbid. I thought, Jesus, we've just announced, like, this is exciting time. And see, when you look at Dom as well, it's a polar opposite. He's like a kid in a high chair bouncing about, so excited about the future. It's not great to see with your chairman saying stuff like that. I think he did say something along the lines of, I can't remember what it was. I think it was like, as much as he said it does take a long time to do certain things, he said something along the lines of, we have been a bit slow on the gun and stuff like that. Let's press forward now. Let's get a move on. So, it's a strange one. He wasn't. With a press conference that were full of enthusiasm and excitement for the future, he was the exact polar opposite.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, it looked like something happened in the background before he just came out onto the stage, and he was just, I don't know, and Dominic Mackay was just smiling, bubbling, as you said, like a kid in a sweet shop. That's the way I would be, and personally every Celtic fan would be. But John, come to yourself briefly. What was your opinion on the Ian Bankier? I mean, he didn't appear at the fan press conference. Was there much use for him at the main one?
Nah.
No, just short and sweet.
I've not got much else to say on it. I mean, I've been very critical of this board. On recent podcasts, and I mean, he has to come out and do something. Somebody, do you know what? I'm actually grateful that they did send somebody for the board, because at least somebody for the board took the time, albeit short, to come out and say something. Finally, because we've been asking for it for a while. It's not just a wee leaked press whatever to the media. He's actually come out and he showed face and he spoke, so fair play to him with that. Other than that, though, I didn't see the point in any of them being there. And all I want to do now going forward is here for Dominic Mackay, here for Ange, and then just let them do the talking on the pitch. The board can just continue doing whatever it is they do.
You know what I found very strange? Both Ange and Mackay called him Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As if it's like a dictatorship. It's like a teacher, you know what I mean? It's as if he's like, it's like I don't know. But it's just so strange. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought it was like a whole school teacher, school kid type thing. And we better be on our best behaviour. It's, I don't know, weird one.
If you're bad, to get a smack on the knuckles.
Aye.
But again, I just wanted your opinion on it. We'll move straight on here to the fan media press conference. And this has been talked about quite a lot over the weekend. Whether it's right, whether it's wrong, whether certain sections of Celtic media should get access and others don't. Me personally, I'm fully behind it. I loved it. I mean, when I seen the two chairs and it was Dom and Ange, they were just speaking like it was just a normal day for them, and they engaged with the fans. And granted, there were some questions that were asked and they were danced around, and you kind of expect that. I mean, we're still in the early stages of Postecoglou's tenure, so they themselves, whether it's right or wrong, might not know what the actual modernisation or what kind of plan they're going with in the future. It's just the here and now, as we discussed earlier. But come to yourself, John, first. Now, as I said, it has been talked about if it's right or wrong. And us as a podcast, 4 months old, we would love to be invited to that. I'm not going to hide that. I mean, we would love to be in the room. Unfortunately, I couldn't have been one of the users over in Scotland. But do you see that as an opportunity for fans to get more involved in Celtic?
Listen, I'm just going to say right off the bat, I thought it was fantastic. And we've been saying for a while now, and I've advocated it as well, the club need to listen to the fans. And I think this might be partly what Dominic Mackay was saying about modernisation as well, is actually giving them a voice. And this sort of press conference is something I'm hoping happens relatively regularly, and they're going to sit down and let fans, especially fan media, who have a voice and they're speaking on behalf of fans and stuff like that, who have an opportunity to go and ask some questions and things like that, because I think that's a fantastic way of interacting with the fans first and foremost, but giving the fans a chance to sort of explain what their maybe fears or concerns are, or just to ask questions, get a little clarity on some things. So I thought it was fantastic, and like you said, Stephen, that we are relatively new in that space, and I mean, I don't think it's any surprise we weren't invited, but I'm hoping that we can grow enough where we get something like that, and because I think it would be special to be part of that as one of the upcoming Celtic fan medias. I mean, our friends at Axum, Natasha was there. And she was asking some questions. The other big ones as well, like Hail 67 and that, they were there. So there's certainly no reason why we, as another up and coming Celtic podcast, can't be part of it. I'd like to be, and I think it would be great to hold these relatively regular. And I'm hoping, as Dom says, that's part of the modernisation and it's interacting with the fans in that way. And he's got a background in that, the sort of the social interaction in media and things like that. So I'm hoping that this is a platform he's going to allow, so that it's not just your mainstream media that get access to these conferences. They're giving the fans a chance to come and speak and ask questions and things like that themselves. Because it takes all the power away from the big media. And it's giving the fans a voice, and I think that's what's most important. So I thought it was fantastic. As far as the conference went itself, I thought it was great. I thought a lot of the questions asked were really good. Obviously, some subjects you weren't. Sorry, Stephen?
No, sorry, I was just muting my mic. I had a cough.
All right, sorry, mate. No, but I thought like some of the questions, obviously, you can't answer straight away because it's still early days. But I thought that by and large, a lot of the questions that were asked were fine. It did shed a little light on some other things that they were asking questions. Obviously, that the fans want to know, not just the media that are writing the papers and everything else, but the fans wanted answered, and some of them were answered. And it was good to see just Dom and Ange just talking with the fans. I think at the end of that conference, Ange even said best press conference he's ever done. And I want to touch on this, and I mean this has polarised some of the support, and I was unsure whether or not I would even bring it up, but I want to just briefly mention. You still hear me, aye?
Yeah.
Aye.
So with
Right, cool. Because I wasn't sure if I'd cut out there. But I just want to briefly mention this: the boy that sort of polarised or split the support, so to speak. He never asked a question. He more or less made a statement. Now, I'm going to just read out what it was said, because there might be people that didn't, because I think a few other fan groups didn't include that. We can only go off what was some of the other media are saying, but we'll say it. I'll just sort of break it out just to see what you think. But basically, the guy says, "Hi Ange, welcome to Celtic. You'll find it at your best football club in the world pretty soon." I don't think any of us can really argue with that. But then he went on to say, "Just please be straight with us and honest with us at all times. We can take defeat, but we don't like being cheated. And we don't like being let down the way we have certainly in the last 12 months. Then he went on to mention which there was no need for this, but he went on to mention there's referees in the country who support one team, the compliance officer supports one team, penalties for one team get 3 retrospective red cards last season. All stuff I thought was completely irrelevant. I mean, you've got a chance to ask the new manager a question, and this is the kind of stuff you're saying, so I don't necessarily agree with all that. He was saying, look at these things, don't do what Mowbray done and take these things in the chin. He did that, and it was an open goal, which was exploited, and it didn't last long. Please, the Celtic support are with you. What you said upstairs about mixed, it was never mixed about you, Ange, and right away the Celtic support found out everything they could about you, and I've not met anybody who wasn't 100% behind you and Dom. But it was Ange's reply to this, and I think this is the most important thing we need to take. He stated that he appreciated it, and what I will say is I'll always protect the interests of this football club, always, against anybody. I can assure you that I won't let anybody take advantage of this football club. My interests lie here, so I'll protect it with everything I can. And I thought that kind of response just shows you the type of guy that Ange is. And I'm pretty sure we can all agree, regardless of what the first guy says and whether or not you agree with the statement that he made, Ange's response was exactly what Celtic fans wanted to hear, and to know that he cares that much about the club. And I thought that his response to that, just I won't let anybody take advantage, was quite a powerful thing to say. And again, it just... Sorry, go ahead.
In regards to that, John, I mean, that caused a big talking point, and as you said, a divide amongst like the podcast and Celtic people in general. Were at the start of it, it started off well, but then, as you said, went into a tangent about certain aspects of the Scally's game that should have been just left for Ange to figure out himself. But as you said there, the response, I mean, it's perfect, isn't it? Because he's come out already saying he's going to protect Celtic, he's going to look out for their interests for going forward, and he's not going to let anyone take us as fools. And we've wanted that for years. We've seen so many times that Celtic have been taken advantage of, whether it be certain rules and regulations around the games, not going to get in depth. But I do understand why so many people found that inappropriate at that time. But I get what you're saying. The response from Ange, we should take heart from that he's going to look for Celtic.
Because, like I said, these guys were invited and had an opportunity to obviously ask Dom and Ange some questions, present questions to them for the podcast and on behalf of the fans. He chose not to and rather make a statement. I would much rather, if I was in that position, ask a question. But like I said, it wasn't so much what was said. Like I said, some stuff could have been left out, but Andy's response is what I felt was most important about that, because it was the reassurance. Like William said earlier, when you hear him speaking and he talks about Celtic and that, you feel like he's kind of cuddled you and saying, "I'm going to take care of the club, don't worry." And he genuinely sounds like he's looking out for the club and the fans. But that just sort of like hammered that home for me, and I thought his response to that was great. But everybody's questions I thought were fine. Understandably, not everything could be answered right away because it's still early days. But it would have been fantastic to be part of that, and I'm glad that it happened. And as I said, I hope it's something that continues throughout the season going forward and quite regularly.
I mean, I think Williams switched off his mic now. He's not going to say it. No, he's joking. No, but the way I see this as well, John, I think you summed it up perfectly in regards to what you were saying. Coming to yourself, William. Now, what we've seen since the whole thing in terms of the aftermath, there's been a certain like mainstream media, people writing columns about it, saying it was embarrassing, it was toe curling embarrassing. It was represented by as one columnist in a certain newspaper. Do you think the mainstream media feel threatened that the fans are getting in now and asking their questions? And one thing I found interesting was, I don't know if you guys know this as well, the questions weren't vetted. So the Celtic fans have the opportunity to say anything they wanted, which I thought was fantastic. The freedom to ask whether it's director of football, transfers, they could ask it, no matter what way it was laid out. But do you think the mainstream media feel a wee bit threatened now, William, that the Celtic fans, or even fans in general, are getting more say in regards to conferences and stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. I never actually thought about that, but yeah, I think you might be right. I think we've not been the Celtic board's biggest fans on our podcast. Let's face it, but they do deserve praise for that fan presser. To be fair, I think any sort of communication and any involvement with the fans is fantastic. Absolutely, I think it's the best thing you can do. I must admit, I seen that well, no, not so much the question, the statement that John was alluding to, and I did cringe myself to look the new man in the eye and say these things like "don't lie to us," and especially seeing as everything that he's been saying beforehand is there's all completely alluding to the fact that he's got the club's best interests at heart, and I don't know he said it himself. These are just words, but yeah, I must admit I did cringe myself a bit when he's looking the guy in the eye and asking these things. But as a whole, fan pressers I think are just the dog's bollocks, for lack of a better phrase. I think it's the only and best thing you can do to communicate with your fan base, which is the most important. These football clubs are not. It's all about the fans. You need to hear them, and they need to have a voice. And I can only applaud Celtic. And I like John, I think Don Mackay's had a massive say in this. I think this might be his idea, and this is another step in this whole modernising of the club. So yeah, bravo.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we did see, like, I know in regards to the actual questions themselves, there were certain times where Dom, it was kind of put to him about the modernisation, what he meant by that, things, and he kept us saying, look, we want to progress and make everything world class, and whether it be the business side of things, whether it be development players, the academy, the scouting department. And yes, people wanted to know about director of football, that type of thing, and it was danced around. We can't hide from that. There was questions that were kind of ducked under, but again, he did give an explanation for most of them. And one thing was clear, John, Ange Postecoglou is Dominic Mackay's man. Now, one thing that I didn't know was Dom himself, he lived in Japan, he worked there, and he knew of Postecoglou. And what I'm surmising here is because Dom did allude to the fact that he was given a chance to make input into the managerial decision. And when the Eddie Howe deal was falling apart, do you think Celtic went to him, look, have you got any ideas here? Have you got anyone in mind? And the first person he thought of was Postecoglou, since he worked in Japan and knew of him.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I took that as well for what he says, and it definitely seems like this is Dom's man. And as you mentioned, the way he said it, he knew all about Ange through his time in Australia and Japan. And like you said, with him coming in, we weren't sure as fans as well what his input was, but he sort of clarified that and says he's had a say. And it sounded like obviously they presented this opportunity. He's suggested this guy. He's got to work on it. He spoke to Ange. He's went out there and all that. Like they've talked and everything else, and he's managed to get it over the line. And he's done it relatively quickly as well, which is what I think we're all grateful for. Granted, I think we as Celtic fans wished it maybe would have happened sooner, but it is what it is, and we are where we are. So, but I mean, I think it's great that Dom's came out and said that, and that he's been upfront, and he says he's had a say, and like you said, he's alluded to it is his man. He's the one that got out of the line. He's the one that done the talking, and he's the one that's obviously the big admirer of Ange, and I think that's evident in everything he says. Because at not one point during that conference did he say anything. Everything he said was full praise for the manager. So I think that's great. And just to want to briefly touch on what you mentioned there as well, that question that you just asked William about the mainstream media feeling threatened. I sort of touched on it when I was saying myself. It's like, I think that's absolutely the case, because like you mentioned, that they've said some negative things about the fan presser, but they're going to say that because, like you mentioned, it's like now you've got other media. They're no the big boys now. Fans are far more likely to tune into Celtic fan media rather than your sort of average rag, and I think that they do feel threatened by it because their sort of numbers are going to come down in a sense, and you've got you're giving the fans a platform now to ask their own questions, make up their own minds, and they can't twist things and do everything. It's no private anymore, and I think that's fantastic. It like it says, I hope that it's something that continues going forward.
Yeah, I think I seen some of them articles, John, and they were quite frankly embarrassing by the people who wrote them, just blatantly putting down what was a fantastic press conference just because they feel threatened in their own kind of their position of power as being the mainstream journalist. And just briefly, coming to yourself, William, before we move on, does it put you at ease knowing that Dominic Mackay's man was Postecoglou, that it was always that way all along when we were thinking it was Peter Law making the decisions?
Yes, I'm a big believer in things happen for a reason, and I think if Howe was our man, I think we obviously know it wasn't Mackay's choice. It's funny looking back now because we were all screaming for Eddie Howe, not only because we thought we were getting a top coach, but I had 20 quid in him at 16-1, so that upset me a bit. But yeah, like I say, I believe in things happen for a reason. And I don't think I would be sitting here now if that was Eddie Howe in that press conference, feeling the same way I do with Postecoglou. His enthusiasm, his sense of pride at getting the job. I'm just, as much as we went through months of hell and weeks of this podcast, mumping and moaning and complaining and shouting, hopefully the board have got it right. And at this moment in time, I'm very happy with what we've got, and I'm really, really pleased that it is Dom's man, because he's the man taking us into the future. And like I said previously, the relationship looks fantastic, and it's just all positive signs at the moment. So yeah, I'm glad it's turned out this way.
Yeah, I think you're right, because we were all worried. I mean, we had loads of podcasts about it as Peter Laws to make them decisions. And I think up until the Howdy collapse that he was. And then, as Dom alluded to, he got the chance to take part in the recruitment process. And I think that's where he kind of brought Postecoglou's name into it. Now, this brings me on to the next question. I'll come to yourself, William, first here. Now, it can be brief. It can be as long as you want. Just a straight question. Is Dominic Mackay a doer or a talker?
That's a very good question.
Give me your honest opinion.
I think he is a doer. I think that there's certain things you need to keep in house. So the whole he's a politician thing. I think if you're in that position, you need to have that sort of side to you where you can. He answers questions without answering them. It's funny when you're actually watching it because he is a proper politician, but I think you do. I think there are things that need to be kept in house. Everything that he's talking about is positive. I think sometimes in every walk of life, if you're in something for so long, you get stagnant, and I think that's what's happened at Celtic under Lawwell and co. I think a fresh set of eyes coming in can only be good for their future. I think he's been successful in his previous tenure in Scottish rugby.
Yeah.
And we've already seen, and he's not even fully in term yet, is it? It's not meant to be the 1st of July he actually takes his place.
1st of July, officially,
and
yeah.
I think he's already implemented change, so he's a doer for me.
And John, same question to yourself?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say he's a doer. Obviously, if he's going to be coming out and speaking to fans regularly, which seems to be the case going forward, he's going to need to be both. He needs to be able to talk, and like William says, to be able to come out and sort of answer questions without answering questions is a skill in itself. And that I think that it's something that's going to help him. Obviously, like William says, some stuff he's going to know it needs to be in-house, and that he can't sort of come out and just lay everything out on the table. There's going to be some stuff going on behind the scenes that he can't even discuss at that particular point in time when he's asked. But again, as William said, if you look at that fan press conference, that seems like something that Dom's put in place. So he's done that. He got Ange in the door. By all accounts, it's his man. He's got that over the line. He's done that. He's talking about fans getting back into the stadium. He's actively speaking to the Scottish government, and I think he was he mentioned in the conference as well that he was going to the Lions game to the stadium to see how they're operating and all the rest of it. So he's certainly doing stuff behind the scenes in order to get things sort of back to normality in terms of fans getting back. He's doing things to get fans involved, such as that press conference. He's got a manager over the line, and he's actively speaking to people. So it certainly seems like a doer. So I'm hoping that remains the case, as I say, throughout the course of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys. I think that the reason why I'm saying it so early on is because he alluded to the fact that Postecoglou was his man, and by all accounts, it took a couple of weeks for him to get that over the line. In terms of what happened with the whole 4 months or whatever it was waiting on a new manager, he brought that name in, and they chased that name and they got him. I think you're right that he has implemented change so far within Celtic, and I can't wait to see what direction we go in as a club. Well, what structure it may be, technical director of football, who knows? But by all accounts, we all have good impressions of both Postecoglou and Mackay so far, and let's hope that keeps rolling throughout the season. And just to move on to the ever-changing landscape of the transfers, whether it be rumours, whether it be Neil Dawn, players wanting away, players incoming, the latest names linked with Celtic, and one seems far down the line, which is Viskovic from Hajduk Split for €5 million, William. That seems to be happening. By all accounts, I've heard no other people saying that it's not happening. I mean, we go off rumours before they kind of bit us in the arse, but we'll go with it for now. And this morning, right back, George Baldock from Sheffield United again was linked, another player we were linked with maybe 2 years ago now. So how are you feeling with the sort of calibre of player so far linked with Celtic?
I think with the Croatian lad, that's the type of remit that we've got at the club now, to bring in good young prospects. If it's 5 million, then he must be a decent. I can't say that I know too much about him, but if he's playing under 21 international level, then he can't be half bad. There's a position we need to strengthen, obviously. With Baldock, I have seen a bit more of him. I've obviously watched him in the English Premier League with Sheffield United, and the season that they were flying, he was a big part of that. As much as he was a very solid player, he's great going forward and can get a good cross. He's got a good cross in him. So yeah, I think these are the type of players. As much as we talk about how we're wanting to, we need to bring in good quality players. The squad's looking very thin as well, so we actually need to bulk it up also. So as much as we're looking to bring in players to slip into the first 11, we're actually looking to bulk in the squad as well. So I wouldn't be saying that every transfer target we're going after at the moment is going to be our number one player. I think Ange said it himself that there's a couple of positions that badly need strengthened.
And to be fair, William, I thought it was very truthful of him saying that, I have to admit.
Yeah, and these are two positions that we definitely need. So if the rumours are true, then yeah, great, get them in. And if you're spending 5 million on a 20-year-old prospect, it seems to me that the board are putting their hand in their pockets for a change. Which again is, John's always alluding to it, the fact that Desmond's a billionaire, and I think people forget how much a billion is. It's like astronomically, massively more than everybody just thinks a million than a billion. No, I was speaking to a friend about it. Neil Goldie, he'll be listening, so I need to give him a shout out. I was speaking to him about it, and he says to me, the best way to describe it is to use it in terms of time. And we were actually driving at the time, and he used his Google thing in his car, whatever it was, and he says he asked to Google how long in seconds is a million, and it came back through as like 12 days or something along the lines, 12 days, and he's like, right, how many seconds blah 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 is a billion, and it came back saying over 31 years. So that shows you it was 21 days, I think it was, for a million, 31 years for a billion. Now that shows you the difference between $1 million and $1 billion. It is crazy astronomical figures. So as much as we're saying he's digging his hands in his pockets, I mean, give us a bit more, please, damn it. We need this. We need a squad strengthened.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right what you're saying. People do forget that Dermot Desmond is a billionaire. I think that last kind of valuation of him was 2 billion, which is even more than $1 billion. So he has lots of money. And the thing that annoys me the most, he doesn't really dip his hand in his pocket. Celtic are sufficient in terms of what they bring in. They will tend to put back in the playing side of things, which is not very much. And coming to yourself, John, the likes of Fiskovic, the likes of Baldock, and the guy that you're very keen on is Rossier, the right back. Now, you made a great point underneath the Twitter post saying that you would prefer him coming in because he can play both sides. Again, what's worrying me here, and I'll be quite upfront with you guys, it seems like to me Celtic are still working off lists of years gone by. Baldock's coming back up into the kind of frame of things again from 2 years ago. Fiskovic, not a name I've heard of, but do you know what I mean? Rossier as well. Are you concerned that again they're kind of falling back into that trap where they're just working off old lists?
Well, I mean, Baldock is the only name I think that's sort of came up that I've recognised as sort of recurring. Rossi, I've not seen before really coming up.
That's what I mean in terms of like, because obviously you'll be spending like €7 million on him. They're looking at Baldock as an alternative, maybe £2 million. They'll be weighing that up. That's where I'm coming from there.
Well, like I said, Rossi can play both sides, so you're essentially bringing in cover for either side, or you've got a player who can slot into either side, left or right. I think that would be a fantastic signing, and it means that we've got cover on both sides, regardless of what happens, and whoever you decide, Ange decides is going to be his first choice, and bringing these other guys in sort of just adds to the depth, as you were saying, and it doesn't just look like we're just signing immediate replacements. We're actually building to sort of pad the team out a bit as well. Nobody's saying that this boy is going to start, the boy Vuskovic or whatever his name is, because I haven't really heard of him. I've heard good things, but I don't know anything about him. But the fact he's valued at what he is, he's playing international football at his age level, and he's been sought after the clubs he has been sought after, leaves a lot to I mean, say it's quite a lot. It's the same with that Ecuadorian boy. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name, but I'm sure he's been.
Get Stephen
I'm sure. What's that?
Get Stephen to pronounce it.
Don't you dare! Don't you dare, William.
But I mean, this guy, he's been highly rated at the minute. He had a fantastic Copa America. He's reportedly being watched by Bayern, Inter, AC, Barca, all these big teams. So I mean, it seems a bit far-fetched for us to be able to compete with these guys in terms of pulling the signature in, because ultimately the leagues that they're in and the size of the clubs that they are and the money they can offer dwarfs us. But the pulling power that we've got is these guys aren't they likely to go to the teams as first-choice regulars, and are likely going to be in the B teams or just sort of training or getting loaned out anyway. So I think we can offer that, and that I think we should be aiming for these guys as well, because there's no reason why no. But I'm confident, just going back to your original question, in case I've went off a tangent, I'm confident that I'm happy with the guys we're going for, and I'm liking the fact that it does seem like we're batting the manager, and he's obviously mentioned, as you said, there's positions we need to strengthen. These names that are coming up that seem a wee bit more concrete are in these positions that we know needs to be strengthened. So it gives me faith that A, Ange has been backed, and that B, we're actually doing work to get these out of the line as quickly as possible. So I'm happy with things as they are at the minute. But I mean, we're going to get linked with names all the time, and you know how I feel about paper talk and rumours and everything else. But it's difficult not to get excited when you see something. So I think
the next few weeks are going to be massive, including the wantaways. I mean, the likes of, correct me if I'm wrong, but the likes of Edward and Ayer, if they play in this qualifier, that means they're ineligible for a future club in that Champions League this year. Is that right?
I don't know if it counts for the qualifiers, William. I have to check that up. But I'm actually glad you did bring up the want-away players. I was coming to you on that point next, and it is quite interesting that Postecoglou said he's going to chat with all these players. And what kind of struck me was that he's saying if players don't want to be here, you'll see them fall by the wayside quite quickly. And it points to me that he's not going to take no shit from likes of Griffiths, Edward, Ayer, Christie, whoever it may be, it seems like Ange is perfectly comfortable saying, if you don't want to be here, William, you can leave. And I think that's quite refreshing.
Yeah, I've talked about it in previous podcasts about Sir Alex Ferguson was the best at looking at a team and seeing the cracks and seeing when it doesn't matter if they're the biggest superstar there and changing it up. I mean, I think Celtic were guilty of that last season, whereas we're a victim of our own success. It's what's not broken. If it's not broken, don't fix it. Whereas I think it needs to be, no, we need to look at this here. There's one away players that is stagnant. We need to freshen it up. We need to bring new guys in. And I think the way Andrew's talking is, again, the club's best interests only. If these guys don't want to be here, and us, I don't know, I would assume that most agree with me. As a Celtic fan, it didn't matter if you're the best player in the world. If you don't want to be here, then go. If you don't want to play for this club, then go. I'd much rather have somebody that plays for that shirt and gives 100% each game and isn't as talented than somebody that's got his head in the sand or his head elsewhere. And if that means that Edward wants to go, then go. If that means I want to go. There's going to be bigger and better players of them come to this club and leave also. There's been better players than them in the past that have came and leave also. Celtic's the one constant and will always keep going. So I'm really pleased. I'm going to make a prediction here.
Go for it.
Lee Griffiths is going to be firing on all cylinders. He's going to get a new deal. He's going to get top goal scorer next year. Big Ange is in the building.
Oh,
By the way, I'm going to back that as well. Because I think Ange is the type of guy who's going to give Lee a chance, and Griffiths is going to be. Well, I mean, we've already seen he's in training. He's working as hard as he can, but it seems that he was in early. He seems to be getting himself up to scratch, and I mean, Scotland could use him as well.
I mean, just looking back at you guys, you know my view on this. I don't think he deserves a new contract, and yes, he can be the amazing goal scorer, best finisher in the SPL on his day, but again, for 3 or 4 years, it's stop start. Is he fit? Is he not fit? And we can't be having that. We need players who are available. We need players who are. Yeah.
It's a funny thing because I totally agree, and I have said in previous podcasts, if it was up to me and it was this at the end of last year when we didn't have Ange and whatnot, then yeah, he's had far too many chances. I think it's time to go, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to give him another deal, and I feel like he needs a manager that can do both. He can put an arm on the shoulder and put a foot up his arse when he needs to. And I just feel like if he's Lee Griffiths on that Czech Republic game, Scotland at the Euros, he was sitting in the stands watching. If that's not enough to put a rocket right up your behind, then I don't know what is. And this opportunity now, there's not going to be 3 or 4 guys ahead of him. We've got a Yeti and him
well,
at the moment.
Bio
maybe. I just feel like this is his opportunity to get back to his best, and I really hope he does, because like we've always said, he's the best finisher in Scotland. He's a better finisher than Edward by a country mile.
And come with yourself, John, just quickly in regards to what me and William were talking about, the want-away players and stuff. Does it come across to you that Postecoglou won't take no shit from them?
Yeah, absolutely, and I firmly agree. If these guys didn't want to be at the club and they're not going to pull their weight to play the way that Ange wants to play, then let them go. Like William says, I would much rather have players putting 100% into every performance, and just leaving it all out in the park, and just playing for the jersey, even if they're not as talented as some of the other boys. But that fight and that desire, I think that says a lot about a player, and I would much rather that at our club than sort of prima donnas or people that think they're better and they deserve to be elsewhere. I mean, if you can't help it when some of these guys, when they're performing really well, and then you get the big clubs coming in and they're maybe inquiring and stuff like that, you can understand maybe why heads would start to turn. But I don't want that. Just stay focused on the contract that you've got, the team that you're with, and just play to the best of your ability for the duration. If something happens and then we get a good bid in and we accept it and then you leave, then so be it. But don't put the heat down, don't drop the heat, and then start no giving a.
Yeah, be fair to Big Edward. I've never once seen anything that makes me think he wants to leave, and he's never said anything about him wanting to leave.
Are you having the laugh?
No.
Are you serious? His body language is shocking.
He's always had that body language.
I don't know.
I think that I understand what you're saying, William, and I think he has shown, or he's certainly come across a little bit more lackadaisical or lazy.
Yes. Oh yeah, I agree with that. But he's not.
year.
I totally agree. He's obviously not hit the heights that he's meant to. But the body language thing, he's always had that whole lackadaisical as if he's not interested thing. And yes, he's scored goals. He's nowhere near hit the heights. I'm massively disappointed in him this year.
Yes, I think everyone has been.
But I've not seen anything that makes me think he's like itching to move, like an Ayer, or I'm not so sure. I know there's a big outburst for Lennon last year saying there's people not want to be here. I wouldn't be so sure that he was one of them.
And then he also said that Edouard wasn't interested in the whole season, but he kept picking him. So you don't know what to believe. And I think,
but this is the thing, right? And I'm going to go back to use another ex-Celtic player who was very, very similar, and Samaras. Samaras, for me, was a player that on his day was damn near untouchable. What a player he was. But he was very inconsistent, and he never put 100% into it all the time. And that bothered me because you knew you had a class player in your team, and he wasn't putting it in. And Edouard strikes me as the same. We know what he's capable of. We've seen him at international level. He's breaking all sorts of records for goal scoring, and he's receiving plaudits in France for how he plays. But then he comes back to Celtic. But last season especially, just sometimes he kind of done stuff and you're like, there he is. That's what we know he's capable of. And then other times you were like, why?
Yeah, I get that. I really get that, because there is rumours saying that the deal to Leicester's collapsed and he's happy to set his contract. But again, can Celtic afford to lose the money on him? I don't think so. We need to kind of cash in on him regardless, I think, this season.
Well, this is what I think, and this comes back to your earlier question about Ange, right? And about him want-away players. He's going to speak to these guys. He's going to talk to them. I'm assuming he's going to tell them about what he wants for them, the way that Celtic, the direction he's taking Celtic in, and letting them all know outright. See if you don't want to be here, then move. And if you don't try, I have no problem dropping you. And you're going to end up nowhere. And some of these guys need to learn this. That if you're not performing and you're not playing, you're I mean, look at Encham. He's another one. It looks like that deal to thing we might fall through as well, to Athens.
Yeah, I mean, a senior man, Felix Boas, come out today again. The former Marseille manager basically said Encham's the reason he left Marseille, which isn't quite good.
But I mean, that's kind of unfair as well, because again, Encham's another one that looks like he wants away. But we've seen what he's capable of when he's got his head down and he's focusing on his football. He's a great player. And just a couple of years ago, how much they were touting for him? Like 15 million and all sorts.
From Porto.
Aye, and you're like, we know what he's capable of. So maybe he's another one that if this deal to Athens falls through, that Ange is going to speak to and say, look, that you've got a chance here to revive your career. Like, do something with it. Get yourself back on the map. Let clubs see that you're a player and that you're willing to try as well. And I think all these guys have got a clean slate. I don't think he's going to take too much stock in what happened last year and the players underperforming. I think he's going to come in, speak to them, and tell them this is the direction we're heading in, and you either want to be here or you don't. You either try or you don't. But ultimately, this is your chance. And it'll be interesting to see who then goes forward in the sort of shape of the team and who we're picking, because we'll know straight off the bat with his lineups. I firmly believe that if a player's not playing, and it's no outright being made it like clear that it's an injury, that they're just not pulling their weight, because Ange doesn't strike me as the type that's going to just sit back and stick with the same team if they're underperforming.
And on the topic of transfers, just to finish up, William, coming to yourself, as Dominic Mackay said, well, actually, it was a question posed in the fan press conference, basically saying who has the full control over the backroom staff, the transfers, what goes on in and around the club, and kind of Dominic Mackay kind of alluded that Postecoglou is the man in control, and he said that himself. Do we believe that? Because that's kind of a different tactic that any Celtic manager previously has used. Usually it's like the terms collective, we'll do it together, we'll figure out the best process together. It looks from the outside, maybe I'm looking too far into it here, that Postecoglou's the man and going to be the man who makes these decisions. Do you get that sort of vibe?
Yeah, I think he said that himself, and I think from Postecoglou's comments throughout the press conference as well is about how they need to understand my way of things, and when he talked again, touching on the staff issue, where he says, "Well, we're going to see over the next few weeks. I need to see how they work, and they need to understand my way of things." And it does seem like it is going to be. This is what we're implementing here. If you don't agree with that, or you're not a part of that, then fine. There's a door. Hopefully, it means that the board have realised their mistakes in the past, and they're going to give him the full back. And it does seem that way at the moment. I know it's all just like we're all getting excited here, but these are all just words. I mean, we could be back in 3 months moaning, wanting them out, and wanting Dom Mackay out, and all the rest of it, because we're out of 2 cups. And
funny enough, William as well. Ange Postecoglou himself said they're just words.
That. Yeah.
So
he wants to get to work. So let's see what you've got.
Yeah, and what was saying, John, here briefly, do you think he has the full control, or is it a bit of management kind of saving themselves, not coming out and saying the whole truth?
No, I don't. I think he's got full control. He says it himself. Dom alluded to it. He says it himself, and I don't think Ange would be here if he wasn't getting full autonomy. So,
yeah, I think we're all in agreement. And again, that's the end of the actual main show itself. And I'm delighted to say we're bringing back the quiz this week between John and William. So
congratulations, William.
So this would be interesting. And as we know, the first game coming up for Celtic, well, competitive game anyway, is Midtjylland in the Champions League qualifier. So I thought it would be just about right to have a Champions League quiz, as Ross kind of dumped me. Ross
Midtjylland quiz there.
Ross stopped me previously with that Euro quiz, 1992 questions. Now we're from. I hold on, Ross. I'm not answering them. But if you guys are ready, you know the format. If you are ready, let me know.
Yeah, I'm ready, mate.
No worries at all. So, Champions League quiz. Which club has won the most Champions League titles?
Real Madrid.
William, heard you first.
What?
That's one number. I heard him first, John. Come on here. Right. Question number 2. Who is the only player to win the Champions League with 3 different clubs?
Clarence Seedorf.
Wow.
Good shout, mate.
2-0 William. 2-0 William. And you can win this. You can get a whitewash here. Question number 3. 3 people have won the Champions League a record 3 times as manager. Who are they?
Jeez, 3 have won it 3 times.
I'll take 2. I'll take 2 of the 3 because one of them is quite difficult.
Zidane.
That's 1.
Ancelotti.
Yep. Zidane and Ancelotti. I'll give you that, William. The third one was Bob Paisley. Obviously a very famous manager. So that's a whitewash, John. I mean, what happened? Did you phone there?
No, you bumped me at the first question, to be honest.
But guys, again, it's just great talking about Celtic again after our Scotty shows. Have you enjoyed this one?
Yeah, it was good, man. Good to be back.
Yeah, and just to make listeners aware, we will be doing a recap pretty soon of Scotland's journey for the European Championships. And as also alluded to in the previous podcast, many people are going to be like, what is there to talk about? But again, everyone in this podcast has different stories and things they want to share. It'll be full of fun, full of laughs, and it's something to look forward to. And until next time when we speak again, stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.